Good afternoon, Chuck Karstensen, Stacey Hoyer, Karstensen team, Remax Results here. I think Michelle will be joining us soon. We're doing our first What's Happening in Minnesota Real Estate episode since May. So it's been like 3 months since we did this. I think a lot has really happened since then. A few people who follow the podcast, I've been doing a few mini shows, like shorter episodes on my own here or there, just to keep things going. But here we are back with a new show. And this show, we are going to be talking, like we always do, on what's happening in the market. Since we last talked, Stacey, I don't know, you want to give a little summary of what you're seeing happening?
Still people obviously buying and selling, just as not as many as there was probably a few months ago, and just kind of some trending back on prices and how many offers buyers are competing against, which is really helpful for, obviously, if you're a buyer and you're trying to buy a house, you're not necessarily competing against 15 other offers like you were a few months ago, maybe one or two still, but you're still being able to get in there and get your offers accepted and stuff. And then sellers, still out there trying to sell, just maybe not as high priced as we would have liked a few months ago, but kind of, peaked out and just kind of trending more stable than kind of ups and downs and stuff like that. Is it just me here?
Yes, I'm here, but I'm not here. So I'm not on the screen. This is one of our on-air production meetings. Then you got to just keep going. Think about your whatever. You haven't had any media career, have you, Stacey?
No, I haven't. Clearly. So I'm just supposed to keep rambling on about random stuff, huh?
Pretty much, going. Yes. I used to be a radio DJ for a short bit. That you just read liners and said what was playing next. And then I did sports broadcasting for a while, like baseball. There's a lot of just talking until something happens. And then when I did like basketball and hockey, play-by-play is pretty active. So you just keep going and you're just trying to keep up. So in your case, it's like baseball. You just got to keep coming up with stuff.
Just keep on coming up
with the next pitch or the next hit.
Okay, deal. I'll work on that.
I was sharing this out to my Facebook page. I like to remind people early in the show. Obviously, you're watching this probably on the Karstensen Team Remax Results page. I'm going to share it to my Facebook page. It's on YouTube now, and then the recording later goes on the Real Life Impact Podcast. So if you're seeing we're doing a show, but you got something going on, you want to listen later, Real Life Impact Podcast, you can look it up on Apple Podcast, a few of the places that carry podcasts. I think Spotify. I probably don't have it on everything. I probably could put it on more things. Honestly, I don't know what to do there. Long time ago, I put it on those pages, and then I kind of forgot about it. So wherever it is. You just got to search it out. And I do have a dedicated link I post every once in a while. So that's the update there. So you don't have to stick with us the whole time. You can listen to our rebroadcast later. Now, about a week ago, I did a show where I gave some update on what's happening in the market. One of the main things I mentioned is the prices peaked in June. What I mean by that is people who are buying a home in June, we're still early June bidding them up. And not that there's never any bid ups anymore. There is on some. There's still very competitive listings here and there. Like the ones everybody likes, right, Stacey?
Yep, absolutely.
And then those sales, a lot of them are closing in June and July, maybe even a couple of them now. But now this next wave of closings, some of them will probably be stabilized price. And then we are seeing some price decreases in some of the areas. Momentum shifted from boom up to a lot of them a little bit of a dip. And then I was speculating, sharing my thoughts on where I think the market would go. So we're going to do some of that today. Different realtors, different economists, different mortgage people, they're going to have different opinions. I always remind people, like, you check into a few people, see what a few people think, because then you can make your own opinion based on enough information, enough facts from people that know what they're doing, not just from somebody who just doesn't know what they're doing, so get some information that way. Stacey, I don't know exactly what you follow other than listening to what I say. What are some of the things you're hearing, whether it's from buyers, sellers, your crazy aunt? Maybe you don't have crazy aunts. Anybody out there that they're talking about what's happening in the market? Now you get to go again.
Yeah. So, I mean, a lot, like back a couple months ago, people were not able to get contingent offers, like the contingent on the sale of their property. Offers accepted. I have two that we have contingencies on for the sale of their house, and which is great. Now sellers are able to, accept offers, good solid offers from a buyer that has to sell, and they're getting their houses on the market. And obviously you want to do a little research if you're going to accept a contingent offer on the sale of somebody's property, just to make sure that it's not in a rural area. Because obviously the little bit rural areas are taking a little bit longer to sell, just because they're further out there, and that's not necessarily what every buyer is looking for as far as like being within the city limits and stuff like that. So just being able to get more of those kind of offers accepted, and now people are able to get inspections done. Like we were seeing a few months ago, a lot of buyers were waiving home inspections because they were competing against competitive offers that weren't asking for home inspections. So now a lot more buyers are getting their contingencies on home inspections accepted as well, which is really helpful for a lot of buyers, because I always encourage people to get home inspections done.
You should go right up to the screen. I learned my face is really big, but it's super.
Right, exactly. So that's kind of
pop on. I totally pattern interrupt you, Stacy. So that was very good. And I think on our last show, like 3 months ago, we mentioned now you actually can ask for an inspection. And then sometimes we're seeing on inspections, more and more repair requests. Still, most people come, but still a couple times I've had people like where the home inspector or the buyer agent, or probably all three of them, like literally blew up the house. Like, okay, we better tear it down. And then the next buyer comes along and buys it. Maybe the seller fixed 2 or 3 things, but it's very strange. Not that I've been doing this 20 years, so that's happened over the years. It's very strange to me how fast that shifted to almost nobody doing a home inspection, or doing a home inspection and asking for something, to going to do a home inspection and then some of these people imploding the house, basically. That's sarcasm a little bit, but you know what I'm saying. Michelle,
I know what you're saying.
Michelle's here.
Hi. I got off the exit finally. 94 is full of road construction. So
what part of 94 are you on?
I'm by Monticello.
All over the place over there. Well, welcome.
Yeah. Hi guys.
What have you been up to, Michelle?
Out showing houses. So viewing houses, looking at houses, seeing more houses all over the place. I was in Elk River and Sartell. So
nice.
Yep.
Good day. It's a nice sunny day for it.
It is nice out. So now we got the whole 3 full-time agent team here of Stacy, Michelle, and I. Reminder, comment, or reach out with your real estate questions, or say hi. This is episode number 26. So we started doing this about 27 months ago was our first episode. So every once in a while we do an episode. We're doing more early when the pandemic hit to keep people up to date. Now we've been slowing down on doing them, and you might have missed it in the show. We're just talking about how the market's shifted. Stacy's shed the positive light on for buyers what that means. You can do a home inspection, you can do a contingent offer, a little bit more negotiable, those kind of things.
You can and you can't still.
Yeah. Well, when I did mention like some of the properties, like everybody likes the same property. So some of the properties are still hot. And then the one thing I didn't get to yet, I was talking about how I feel like inspections have shifted quickly. The other thing I think that shifted quickly that would be good for sellers to know, and actually good for buyers, they should know this. Your third option might be dead silent on the other end as far as showings. So you're all hot and heavy for 1, and then 2 you kind of like. And then number 3, like nobody's looking at it. So it went from hot amount of showings, and really this was probably April. It started to show down in showings, and then the peak of the market and prices was June. Went really hot on showings to slower on showings to now the best houses still pretty active, but not as many showings. Meaning the ones that you think would do great, that did great the last couple of years, doing well. Then there's ones that this will be fine. Then the last couple of years did really well, even that you thought it'd be fine. Now they're just doing okay, like spinning their wheels. Maybe you got to price drop them, and then they sell. And then there's some that you think, well, this should do okay. And the okay ones in the past still sold pretty quickly, but maybe not much action. And some of those are just like nobody's even sniffing at them now, but they're not bad houses.
Yeah.
And that's kind of a big shift, because if you were like hearing your friends, your neighbors, your coworkers selling their house 2-3 months ago and they just closed last month, and you're like, oh, they got, you know, amazing money for your house, and you go on the market and you're like, nobody, what's happening? And that's happening on some of them, right, Michelle?
Oh yeah. I mean, I see that on the buyer and the seller side, you know. I'm out here showing houses all over the place, as we know, because we go all over the place, and every market's different, but it's also like per house, you know. It's like this market should be slower wherever I am, but then if the house is really nice, it, you know, it's got 20 people lined up outside to see it. So it's like that, and how you price it. And it's very important how to price it now. And Chuck, you talk about this a lot, and Stacey, I know you talk about this, how like we give our sellers options, like here's where you probably should do it, here's like medium, you might get this price, and here's the high, and the high was the old market, right? And if we start there, yeah, you want to start there because you feel like, well, my neighbor got that, or it should be that, it's worth that. Well, it was worth that 2 months ago. It's not worth that now. And if you have any chance of getting multiple offers, you really need to start at the bottom. But it's up to the sellers in the end. Like, yeah, we could say like, oh, we won't take the listing if you don't price it at this. But at the end of the day, it's really up to the seller where they want to start and how much stress they want to put on themselves. Because the buyers that I'm helping that are still losing out on multiple offers, those sellers are listing at the bottom price we give them, right? And they're getting multiple offers. And maybe they get less than what they could have if they just start at the top, but that's not also like necessarily true. Maybe you get more by starting there. And everyone we work with is different, and it's totally understandable in all the situations. It's just like the current market we are in, we have never seen before. You and I have never lived this day before, so we've never seen it. So even as experts, all three of us are, it's still like, where do we go? How do we start? How do we go with this? And how can we best help you? But because we are experts in what we do and we've done it long enough, it's just basically mostly about working with your clients that trust that you had their best interests at heart, and that's what you're trying to do, you know? So if you sign on to, like, as a buyer that you've never met, or a seller that's never met you, they are just putting all their eggs in your basket, but then they've got to keep them in there, you know? So that's how I see it as. And, you know, it's a struggle. It was a struggle during COVID. It was a struggle 8 years ago. You know, it's always a struggle in whatever business you do, but you got to decide, like, how do I change it up a little bit to help the people that want to be helped? And that's the case. Like, you got to want to be helped, you know? So it's a different market for sure, though. I know because the people I'm helping that are still losing in multiple offers to people that are doing no inspection. When I came on, I heard you say, Stacey, about, you know, at least they can do an inspection now, or Chuck saying like, yeah, and then the ones that are doing an inspection are asking for like 30 things, which is so true. But there's still people I'm working with that are losing out to buyers that are waiving the inspection. So
yeah,
and we can't blame people for doing an inspection.
No,
like,
I encourage people to.
I would do one. I would do one if I bought the house, so I can't tell them not to. So,
that's kind of how I coach my buyers too. Like, hey, it's 100% up to you. And I ask them multiple times in the writing process, because I've had people come back and say, well, this would have been found on the inspection and we didn't do an inspection, and now we're finding this out. And I'm like, I'm sorry. Like, yep, we've closed on the house, and yeah, now there's an issue, and that's hard. It's really hard to hear your buyers come back and wish they would have done one, but they didn't want to lose the house. And so it's difficult, but we're getting through it. And, you know, buyers are trusting us too, and they have to trust themselves as well to be okay with what they decide.
Yes. And then, you know, we go through like the hail period. A lot of places I'm showing now, you're like, oh, new roof there. This one should have a new roof. But then you've got sellers that are like, they're not going to do anything. I'm like, okay, but like, that's why you have insurance, you know?
Yeah.
So it's interesting, but you know, it's definitely doable.
Some of them, Yeah, some of the insurance
Yeah.
companies are great to work with. Obviously, depends on your contractor sometimes. So
Yeah,
Yep.
it's an iffy thing, but it's like, okay, this is real estate. And going back to like real estate 101, when I first learned from Chuck was, or like, I mean, basically since you're born, like your house is only worth as much as somebody's going to pay you for it. So you got to find somebody to pay you money for it.
Yep.
So good. Let's say good topic, good question there. Your home's worth, somebody's going to pay you for it. But here's
Yep.
something I want to interject. 100% right. But now we are seeing investors back out. Are back out there, making offers, and some of my
Yep.
listings are investor type of homes. And I'm seeing more investor offers, more low ball offers, and which is totally fine. I get it. But what a regular buyer, first time home buyer, experienced buyer, an investor offer, they also got to realize this, has somebody who's an expert like us. I know even that they made such an offer and the home's been on the market at such a price and such a time that the house is going to still sell based on the flow of business, based on the clicks, based on my intuition, for a certain price. So it's worth what somebody's going to pay, but I also know about what somebody's going to pay. So when an investor comes in and goes, here's my offer, I can tell a seller, no, that's too low. I think we'll do better. Or I can say, yeah, you know what? We got to do this deal. Like, it is what it is. And it's worth what somebody's going to pay, but it's not always worth what investor guy or some of these people out there think it's worth. Because there's people out there thinking the market's going to go down lower than we think it is, or I think it is. And then there's people out there that think it's not going to go down. And I addressed this a little bit in the last episode. It's already gone down in most properties. It just has. It like disappeared. 10% equity disappeared on most houses almost in a blink of an eye.
Yep. Correct. Yeah, and if you think about that, like when you say 10%, you're like, oh, 10%. But if you have a $500,000 property, dude, that's a $450 property now. Like, you have to be able to do the math in your head and they realize, like, yep, I lost out on that. But the biggest thing is, like, yeah, so you didn't sell Tesla at the top of the market, right? But you're still making more than you would have made a couple of years ago. I mean, my house is still worth $60,000 more than I paid for it instead of $200,000. Like, people just got to look at the market, stop listening to the news technically, because it's like, yes, we are still seeing multiple offers, and not on everything, because some stuff is overpriced. So
on another thing, I had somebody message me. Oh, go ahead.
Go ahead.
I was going to say, I had somebody message me yesterday. Is anybody buying houses anymore? Are any houses? No, are any houses selling? This is a seller who was waiting to get her roof on and waiting for cleaning up the house or whatever. I haven't been there yet. People are buying. Here's the big thing people should understand about the shift in the market. Yeah, we talked about many houses have come down in price. There's a few still getting a good price, value, whatever you want to call it, and the rest of them aren't tanked. They're just a little bit lower or a percentage lower than they were and way higher than before. But the biggest thing, really the main difference in the next several months, is there's going to be less real estate transactions, where it really just means your realtors are going to do less deals, most of them. So this is the shift. Actually, if you're buying and selling in the same market, we say this in every market, doesn't really matter in most cases. Yes, real estate's local. If you're selling here and moving somewhere else, could be better, could be worse there, and it's a good time to sell. But the real estate agents are the one that are like, oh, now we're doing less deals if you do the same amount of work. That's the biggest shift. So if a realtor is like used to doing X amount of business and there's less business and they don't adjust to what's happening, that's who gets clobbered in this shift. It's really the seller who lived in the house 10 years, didn't matter. You would have been fine with 2021 prices when you heard 2021 prices, if you were buying and selling at the same time. Doesn't matter to you. the buyer who bought 2 months ago and paid top dollar, well, if you're living there a long time, doesn't matter. It'll come back up. You locked in your payment. If the interest rates go up, that's what they are. Would you rather be renting? Probably not. But if you're moving in a year, maybe you should rent. The interest rates actually came down a little bit. So maybe you buy now. And then are you looking for your dream home, or are you looking for a good enough place? That's what I said earlier about top home, number 2 home, number 3 home. Your number 3 option probably can go get it. It's just number 1, everybody wants. Number 2, a couple people want. Number 3, it's like everybody's, slipping past it. Just go get that one. Get in the house. Get started.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, that's what I was talking to one of my buyers today. I was saying, like, what we do is help you invest. This is an investment. You can call it your home all day long. I just listened to a podcast on this too. Like, your home is where you are. Like, honestly, it doesn't matter if you're living in your van down by the river. That's your home, right? Like, we help you do investing, right? So our expertise comes from our experience over and over, year over year, hundreds and hundreds of sales. And that's where the experience comes from. And we're helping you invest. Just like if you were investing in the stock market, or, I don't know, storing your cash, wherever you're doing, whatever you're doing, you're investing. So if you put it all in your savings, you're still investing at 0.1%. At the end of the day, the best thing to do is look at the house. Like you said, Chuck, maybe the number one is like the cutest, most adorable one. That doesn't mean it's going to be the one that's going to be worth the most money 10 years from now or 5 years from now. So you really got to trust, like, in the realtor, knowing, like, okay, this cute house, but it's probably not going to be worth as much as it needs to be unless it's in a specific location. You can get like the best house.
Some people keep their house up, like the cute house. You might have 4 dogs and 7 kids. You're going to destroy the house anyway. Minus my option 3. You know what I mean?
Yep, that's so true.
So I got you guys.
Yeah, it's true.
Yeah,
it's true.
100%.
So you could buy a brand new vehicle. It doesn't mean you're going to keep it looking brand new. So that's a
Which
very
the
good
point is, the cutest house isn't always best for you. Number 3 house could be best for you because you're going to live in it anyway. And the main thing we've been telling people, whether it's a year ago or now or next month or whatever the market is, live where you want to live. If you're living in an apartment and you don't like that living, or living in a townhome and you don't like that living, live where you want to live. It's okay to buy. Even if the market was going down more than I thought it was, and I stated in my last episode some of the scenarios of where it was, and I think some of that's already happened. So because it's already happened, there's not a huge percentage more it's going to drop quickly, depending on what the government does. It might level off and even go up a little bit, or it might go down a little bit more, or whatever, whatever the case happens. So it's like, you want to analyze it if that's your style, but don't overthink it. Live where you want to live.
Yeah, no, I
That's
agree.
true. More people moving in the outer skirts of, the cities and stuff like that because they can and they want to.
Yeah, and some of it's just more affordable depending on what you're looking for.
True.
So I don't think gas prices are going to be up significantly forever, so you probably drive a little bit.
I'm sure they've
come down
downward towards the election. So the biggest thing, and I mentioned in the comments, we talked about the economy, and I don't assume Stacy and Michelle studied the economy super duper close, but if you do, you can chime in. Let me know. I listen to enough podcasts, do enough, reading of the real estate guides and so on. The biggest challenge for the overall economy, inflation, number one. Typically, when things inflate, inflation helps home prices. The reason why we're seeing some decrease, they just overinflated because there was just so much money in the market. And then the reason why also home prices would come down, they just can't keep going up that high forever. They're like logic, right? It's got to level off, go down, kind of do a little roller coaster. I've been saying this like for a long time on the episode. The other thing, the debt bubble. U.S. household debt at all-time high. Last month, $40+ billion of debt was added. That's your credit cards, your student loans, your car payments, and 40 billion, which sounds like a lot, but there's a lot of people, so that's possible. So more people are now starting to be in a poor debt position. And the challenge is a lot of it is because inflation. They're paying credit cards, gas and groceries. That's not good. That's not good. So now that's going to cause some people that are paying their bills to refinance and pull some of the cash out of their house to keep them afloat. Not a good philosophy. The other thing is it's going to tighten people on their general spending. So some of these, things that people do consumer-wise is going to start to tighten up, which is why there's a lot of pullback on the stocks, because they just, can't have as much cash flow subscribers depending on what they're doing. And that was a lot of the stock market going way up was just that extra money with people that sat around because they could, younger people in their parents' house or whatever, threw their couple $1,000 in the market, and other people had extra money that were doing well already. And so that's going to come down, I think, even more. It's came down a lot, and now it's going to level. Then you know how that goes if you follow the stock market. But I think that'll come down more. Houses in general are just kind of resetting to where they should have increased during this inflationary period. And then that's why it should stay flat with probably a little bit of normal appreciation going forward. However, if they do too much manipulation yet this year, keep their spots and first of all, Republicans and Democrats, even though they fight with each other, they're all like trying to manipulate the system on the economy. And they pretend things are really, really good or jobs are good. But the job market, you hear there's not that much unemployment or it's doing well. They added jobs. They're not adding great jobs. It's just people coming back, finally working at restaurants. There's very few manufacturing jobs. There's just service jobs, the second jobs. There's less workers this month than last month, but more jobs added because people are getting second jobs so they can pay off all their debt or keep out of debt. So that's a challenge going forward for the economy. How does that affect your house? Well, people that have houses are just going to struggle to stay in their house. So even that there's been an influx on homes on the market, it's going to level off. Inventory will stay low. And then people are like, oh, I hear there's all these foreclosures. There might be, but they can still sell their house because they have all kind of equity over the past couple of years. So people just have to be aware of what's going on in the economy, which I think most people are not. And that's the biggest thing where people can get sideswiped, but it's not really on their housing. It's on the other things I briefly mentioned there. Thoughts or questions on that?
Do you also think like when interest rates were like 2.5%, 3% and people had to like multiple offer up, that the majority, which I would say the majority of my clients, because I usually kind of know where they can be at in their budget, were reaching the top of their pay thing, even that they could, instead of buying a $400,000 house, for example, they could buy a $500,000 house just because of the interest rates. They were like really pushing to the top of their budget. So now they got a new house. So now they want to buy things for that house. So like, it does like all circulate, like, and then, so you're like reaching top. And if your job didn't get any better, you're spending more money because you're also in a new house. Most people were not downsizing. Most people were upsizing or buying a second property. So that's why, if the debt, of course, because of inflation, because stuff costs more, well, it also costs more to like move to your house.
Do everything.
So, it's kind of interesting. I spent a lot of the last 2 years writing offers. And again, like I've said in the last couple of weeks, I've lost out on multiple offers still. But it was like, what do we offer? And it still is, what do we offer? And it's like, well, like you said, Chuck, you can take the second or third best house and you can offer less and you'll get that house. So if you think you have to have this perfect house, you're still going to be offering probably more than you should be. So yeah, that's kind of my look at it. I mean, I think that was a really good take. You can get a house. Anyone that says right now, like they're having a hard time finding a house is because they're being too picky. It's a house. Make it nicer.
Yeah.
As long as it's in the area you want to live in, then that should be what's most important. Yeah.
Yes. So to piggyback off what you're saying, Michelle, what I'm saying is with when you hear the news, because you said the news, don't listen to the news, they report things the way they want to report things, and they inflate stuff to scare people, but they also don't talk about stuff to make it sound good for their I don't know, their agenda. So some of the things they're not talking about are things like I just mentioned. They're doing great on jobs. Like it's not, it's more like the part-time jobs that were lost that are coming back, and it's second jobs for people just to make it. And it's good. I did a podcast on this. Make yourself more employable. One of the things you got to do is just you got to grind through this time period. You do not want to be somebody who goes into debt mode here, on especially the consumer debt. And then when it comes to house debt, yes, in general, mortgage debt's the best debt you can have because over time it goes up, especially in an inflationary period. But Michelle mentioned people buying stuff for the house. You need to assess your finances to what makes sense there. Because if you get into the house you like at top of your money, plus need to furnish it and do all this stuff, you're not going to be feeling good either. You need to do what's best for you and figure it out. And some of that is you might have to work on the side, unfortunately, but there are opportunities out there for that. But you don't want to be one or the people, and there's probably a couple of people listening or would hear this and maybe get offended by it. Don't want to be one of those people for the last 2 years really didn't do anything, and it's a drain on the economy and society. Like the economy does better if more people are out there working and producing and paying taxes. Like that is something to happen to help the economy stabilize. But the news, I think, tries to scare people out of doing some of this stuff so that the economy struggles worse, and maybe that gets them to vote for their political party better. I don't really know.
Yep. Don't get that side of it either.
I know. I don't watch the news, and I'm not really into politics, so.
Yep.
I guess I don't watch the news. I watch social media news, which is half fake too. So.
Yeah, you got to be careful with that stuff.
Oh no.
And even if you're listening to podcasts, you got to listen to a variety of podcasts. If you just listen to your people's podcast, you get I try to decipher, okay, what's this guy saying and what's this person selling and why are they saying this? Okay, this makes sense. And this is him selling. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And I think, I like being with Remax Results because we are the biggest brokerage, and I see a lot of insight because we can easily connect with other agents. I just see a lot of insight of what's actually going on compared to what people are pretending that's going on. It's like you could read the newspaper, watch the news, listen to one agent say one thing or one agent say the other, and you're right on, Chuck. Like the majority of the people are saying the exact same things we are saying, because we've done this in long enough to realize like what's actually happening. And because we're actually out like helping people buy and sell homes. So we actually can still see what's actually happening compared to like what's fake news. So.
Yeah. And that goes back to why I did the podcast on, what makes you an expert. Like you do now that the market's shifted, you really always wanted to, but sometimes there's just not enough people out there to help you, just like anything. Like you need to work with somebody who's an expert who can give you good advice. I have had people come to me like 2-3 months ago, or maybe a month and a half ago, here in the market starting to turn. Well, I really want to move in 2 years, but should I move now? Well, first of all, 6 weeks ago was too late. Years from now, I personally think that it's going to be fine. If you want, that goes back to living where you want to live. Yeah, it might not. 2020 are higher than June 2024, but it would just be the decline we probably already had, and then a flat and low appreciation. And let's say it did drop, let's say it just dropped 10% the second half of the year. This year's still going to be a year-over-year appreciation year. And then it just goes up a little bit the next year, and a little bit the next year. And they're like, my house was 700 in June of 2022, and now it's 665. But you lived where you wanted to live for 2 years, and now you're selling at 665 and probably buying wherever else at the same market. So it It doesn't matter. You don't need to fire sale it. And some of the areas I'm seeing a lot of listings, and I think coming out, and I think some of it is like, hurry up before the market drops. Sorry, that was 2 months ago.
Yeah. That happened 2 years ago too. A lot of people were like, oh my God, we're going to sell before the market drop. And most of them were buying, but it's like, it didn't drop.
Yeah.
But also like, obviously Chuck's an agent in Wisconsin. I'm an agent in Florida. So I do help people in Florida as well. And the market has dropped there too. So it's not just Minnesota. It's all around. And that's because, like Chuck said, we had to like settle out a little bit. We had to. There was no, like, you can't just keep going. People don't make that much money. Like, something had to settle it out. So you can get crabby about that, or you can just be thankful you're still making way more than you paid for the house 5, 10, 15, 20, 30 years ago. So if you bought last year, I have clients like that too, and they just understand, like, that was their choice. Like you were talking about, Chuck, like, that's just your choice. Like, you know, but the rest of you are all okay. You're all okay. Better than okay.
And going back to how much business to be done, like people ask, is anything selling? First of all, there's the people that need to sell. Like, this is their timing to move. Their kids graduated. They're downsizing because of age. They're aging out of the home. They're having kids. They need more space. They want to live where they want to live. Their jobs are doing great. People, you know, get divorces. Somebody dies, like a couple of people I'm helping, or, you know, they lost their spouse. So then they're like, okay, time to go to assisted living or apartment living. There's always people moving, buying and selling, no matter what market it is. It's always, who's the market good for? But was it good buyers? Maybe if you lock into a 2.5%, 3% interest rate for 30-year term or 15-year term, and your payments would be, then you did fine, right? That was part of the sell on that. You get low interest rates. And then the rates spiked up, and eventually they spiked up enough where people put the brakes on. But what people don't really know now is they're like over 1% lower than what they were when they spiked up about 2 months ago. So they came back down enough. So now the houses, so think about this, people. Think about this. The houses now went down on most of them. Again, a few of them are still doing well. Down, let's say 10%. And the interest rate went down 1.25% in 2 months. Very much more affordable than they were a few months ago, and very similar affordability till second half of last year. And that's why I said in the last podcast, past one prices where the rates were good. The stuff, a decent market, so that you know, that it's still good enough for most people. And they can do that. Yep. They can manipulate the rates. They can do programs, whatever it is. Did I cut out?
Yeah, you've been cutting out a bit. Off and on.
Too far from my internet. Sorry, everybody. Missed everything I said.
You get the gist of it. It's just kind of delayed.
Yeah.
But you're good. Basically, you said it's okay to buy and sell.
Always
okay to buy
been.
and sell.
Always will be.
Yep. Always has been.
It's one of those things.
And if you're waiting for, some people say they're waiting for the bubble to burst, right? There's a very the bubble will burst in real estate, but that's why I said in the economy. I think there's still some bubbling to burst overall in the economy. So you're actually waiting to see if you have a job, not waiting to see if the real estate market will burst. And that's smart too. You shouldn't buy if you might lose your job next week.
No, you don't want to do that.
So ladies, I'm going to relocate to a better internet in the house. Why don't you give your final summaries and all?
All right then. Oh, funny.
Oh, real estate, August 10th, 2022. Oh, it's been about the same as it's been for the last 45 days or so. I would say, yes, a little bit different is the interest rate is about 5%. And I remember, I say this all the time, when I bought 8 years ago, I paid 4.5%. So no different, right?
Goes up and down.
And except the prices of houses were lower, but that was also like 10 years ago. People made less money 10 years ago. So it's all about the same. I would say if you're thinking about buying, definitely should think about buying now, because you can always refinance if the rate does go lower. But we don't see the market dropping out. We see it going slightly lower as we head into fall, like every other year. Even last year, I don't think it went up. It might have stayed, but it didn't go up. And then come February, I don't see any difference that it won't possibly go up, but we don't know. And if you're waiting for the bubble to burst, I guess you're waiting for every negative bubble to burst. So that's my thought on it. So
yeah, you should just do it anyways, because like we've said a few times, live where you want to live. Why be miserable and pay a mortgage if you could just move and be happy with what you're paying, even if it is a little bit more? You might as well just do it. Or if you hate your
sellers
neighbors,
are still getting plenty of money.
Yep.
Plenty of money. So if you want to sell. And if not, then, you're good staying with yours, stay where you are. It's just hard to, it's no different. It's just like, they weren't like, I feel like people were not talking about real estate the last couple of years. And now because there's nothing else to talk about, that's what they're talking about. But you could just as well hear like the stock market is crashing. But it always does, like every 6 to 7 years or something like that. I'm not like way into it, but it does do that because people sell. And when they sell out, like Chuck says, and then they decide to buy, that's the same as the real estate market. People sell. So it goes down and then they buy. So it's just always fluctuating. So yeah, it's interesting.
So I'm back. And one comment on that is, so one of the things I try to tell people now is that you don't want to be a speculative seller. Like I want this high price at overpriced price, like we talked about pricing. However, we're in that intermittent period of the shift where realtors were having trouble getting listings. And we do, like Michelle said, try to, work with the seller if it seems like it's got a chance on the price. But there's a lot of people listing it. I've seen price drops that I showed a house yesterday that started at $625. That's at $450. It's not even a $450 house. It's like a $400 house. How the heck did they come up with the $625 price? They are dropping it. So I guess I give them credit for that.
Yeah.
Stacy, normally it's your dog making sound.
I know. I locked him away.
Scouty, you want to be on the video here, buddy? Come up here. Come up here, Scouty. We'll get you an appearance. You can get up on my lap.
Yeah, I mean, like what I see now is like a lot of price drops because it is interesting. You're showing like 5-6 houses instead of one every single day, every time they pop up, because you usually can wait like 3 days before it sells, or a week or a month, depending on how it's priced. But like every single house I'm selling, I'll like look like price drop, or they'll relist it so you can't really see the price drop unless you look back at the history. Like, it was listed in May for this price and now we're in August and I thought it was just listed. Like you have to like literally dig back, and if you do that, you'll see like, yes, you're like, as far as like working with sellers, like, yep, that's what the price was, but yep, we have to keep dropping it, or we could have just started lower. One of the two. I mean, so the old saying goes is like, you can always go lower, you can't go higher, right? Well, if you start lower and get multiple offers, you definitely can go higher. But yes, you're not going to get more than that if you only have one offer. So I get it. But
well, we did get one offer that would go over the price quickly in a listing. So on the speculative seller situation, I think, so remember when we talked about inventory and it was like less than a month of inventory, but like half of the less than a month of inventory is like new construction to be built houses. There was literally like a week, 2 weeks of inventory. Now it's almost at 3 months of inventory, but it's still, some of that is the new homes. So let's say a half a month. And then probably a month of that is just people that miss the market, but want their price, by golly, that they're not going to get. So now really there's only a month and a half of legitimate inventory that has a chance to sell. So it's still low inventory, but we're in that cycle where about a month of inventory worth of sellers don't actually realize that they missed the boat because their realtor is too scared to tell them, or whatever the case is. I don't know the conversations other realtors have with their sellers. I'm pretty straightforward with like, here's where the price should be, and if it's not going to make sense, like, maybe we're done with it. I'm even having those conversations up front if the price is on the high end, telling them, okay, if we're going to go here, like we could be spinning our wheels for months. Remember real estate when it used to take several months to sell? Like, is that what you want? And they question themselves, and some of them go down, and then there's always like, I'm gonna keep my price. you know, maybe not exactly.
I don't
that.
have to move. I don't have to move.
Yeah.
But there's going to be a time very soon where if you're a speculative seller, you're just going to have to go away so it gets to the normal inventory, and that'll also keep the pricing level or the normal appreciation we talk about where it goes up 1 to 4% a year. It's just we're in that intermittent weird time where people are trying to juggle and figure it out and feel through the shift that we're in.
Yep.
Agreed.
Yep.
All right, I think Stacy's got to go somewhere. You got any?
I do.
Stacy, we'll wrap this up.
Sounds good. I'm good.
All right, that's our show,
drive.
people. We'll do this again whenever we feel like we should do this. Hard to do it in the summer. We got dogs whining, kids running around.
Right.
And
I locked them all away. Chuck, you had to lock them up.
I should.
The kids too.
All right. Take care, everybody. We'll see you again soon.
Bye-bye.
Bye.